Let us traverse the landscape of ancient legends and delve into the whispers of the earth, uncovering secrets from a time before our own. As I revisited the footage from my trip and pieced together these videos, I've unearthed aspects and details previously overlooked, all pointing to a world where giants might have roamed and the heavens spun different stories. Imagine a world enveloped by a dense vapor canopy, where the sun was merely a diffused glow in the sky. Across the landscape, ancient relics stand as silent sentinels, marking each day's sunrise, guiding us to understand a pre-flood civilization that left behind no written records. Turning to Stone Age, synonymous with enigma, its construction reflects the precision seen in the Great Pyramids. The transported blue stones from Wales, in an environment where external noises are strangely muted, suggest a purpose far beyond simple observation. Linked to Saturn or Kronos, the god of time, Stonehenge may well have served as an ancient chronometer, marking the passage of epochs. And beneath the mystical Glastonbury Tor, a network of tunnels and chambers shows more resemblance to what is found in the pyramids. Legends hint at these being entrances to the underworld, resting within are giant skeletons. Could they be the remains of the colossal beings from the vapor canopy era? This time, lost in the mists of prehistory, brims with myths of towering figures. King Arthur's tales, for instance, speak not just of chivalry and magic, but of beings who were more god than human, their true nature cloaked under the guise of mortality. These stories, replete with monsters, giants and supernatural forces, depict lands once demonic, tamed only by the conquests of these heroes, making them fit for human habitation. Given the extraordinary forces that giants and the supernatural powers of magicians and druids could wield, the transportation of enormous stones becomes less enigmatic. But remember, the essence of a good story isn't its factual accuracy, but its ability to open our minds. Keeping an open mind isn't just about accepting the mystical. It lights the path to spiritual growth and understanding. For the remainder of this episode, we will delve deeper into the personal revelations and the profound impact this extraordinary trip has had on my spiritual journey. Join me as we explore the transformative experiences and insights gained from navigating these ancient landscapes and legends. Goodbye. So I feel all good, ready to leave for London. I'm gonna say hi to Basil, good friend of mine, who actually I had my very first psychedelic experience with, which got it all started. So that's pretty nice, nice touch to this. And then we fly home, on the road again. Let's go. It's time for sharing some final summarizing thoughts of this spectacular week. This vlog is just an amazing way that it's just a golden combination for me to combine travel and spirituality, my two biggest interests, biggest passions and things that I love to do and concern myself the most with, and where I'm able to show how magic can unfold by in a very practical way by an example of my travels, and where I'm letting go a little bit of the rigidity of my everyday routines and let randomness take over, and show you how you're able to do that, to kind of get in the flow of these synchronicities, and just show you what kind of situations you end up in and how big of an effect, and how it all kind of like comes full circle in the end, if you like, with hindsight. Exactly what I what I talked about in the train on the way when we started this whole thing, like exactly what I hope to show you guys, I think laid out perfectly. Doing this vlog, it's something that where you can just see it happening in real life, and it gives hopefully some inspiration to people, that they would think like, oh, this is actually really cool, like I also would like to try to have these kinds of experiences in this way. And the other part of it is that it's really cool that I completely captured the energetic inception of the book, in where I did some day-to-day coverage every morning of the writing process, but also that in that session with my mother, the title of the book was given to me by I believe my mother, because I also explained like the believe in yourself, that's really that core theme, that like the biggest lesson that my mom taught me and got me where I am today. That's really like just hitting the nail on the head of what this book of mine is going to be about, and that whole explanation of like where I went through in like the more meditative part of the session, and where I repeated this mantra: believe in yourself, go in, like go into your deeper core, the source of your being, and try to clean and heal that channel towards the source of your entire being. Because as I explained, your inside represents how you experience your outside world, and all of that, like going in, believing inside yourself, and believe that all the answers are by doing the inner work, and like all those elements that became part of it, just makes it. And I'll make sure that I describe as much more concise and better in the actual introduction of the book. But like just that whole contribution to like really energetically kickstarting the writing process of this book, and understanding the intent of where it has to go, in combination with this vlog, as what I just explained before, that I really feel that that's what I hope to contribute in this lifetime, and looking forward to many more adventures like this. Like I really feel that, like I said, I'm onto something. This is just, I really enjoy it, and I think it can become much better. We're gonna see Basil, have a nice lunch together, and we can talk a little bit more about this very first experiences of us that we had together, that triggered all of this. Okay, so we arrived. We're gonna meet Basil. He's actually living in a really nice little block. Hey man, thanks for the lovely lunch.
Cutie. There you go.
Come in.
Alright, we're doing a selfie.
Yeah, that's perfect like this. I really enjoyed it. London traffic is a bit worse than expected. And things are taking a bit longer, but that's fine. Took that into account, I think, a little. Should still be fine. and I thought this could actually be a good moment, since we're a bit in a traffic jam, driving slow, to share a few more considerations and things that really clicked while I was having this lovely lunch at Basil's and Manolia, and where they were really like, they're amazing people. They were really sincerely interested, and they knew and they understood the kind of stuff that I was talking about. So they were also able like to pitch in and have some good responses that also got me thinking and to be a bit sharper in explaining things, which I noticed was very helpful to actually understand a few things also a bit better. And there were one or two things that I actually feel that I need to clarify a little bit more, or put some extra emphasis on. And that's on one part, in that whole ceremony, when I was explaining it to them and explaining like the session and how it went and how I kind of came to the realizations, the lessons from it. I think the most important part of the actual emotional closure, which I was not even really aware that was, like really consciously aware that was a thing going on. Like that could have easily been that it was a thing and it had been playing in the back of my mind, but I was never really thinking about it too much as a problem. But I realize now why she mentioned it, and was like that she mentioned and she gave me permission not to feel guilty about it. And at the moment I was not very clear on what she might have meant with the guilt, but that could also easily be because of the language barrier. There was like, she was Spanish, and she still had a little bit of, she was very new to learning English, so her English was still hard to understand sometimes, and a bit harder for her to express herself. And she explained that she was gonna send me a translated text that she would type out a bit more detail of the whole session and the things that were going on for her. But in regards to the guilt, I now much better understand the way that she built it up and probably how she meant it, because the whole conversation started and the whole approach to how my mom and my parents got brought into this is that she was explaining that I have this closer relationship with my mom, and that's like the first moment that I knew that she was legit, like that she was like nothing I had mentioned or that she could have known about this relationship with my mom, that I had a closer relationship with my mom than with my dad. And that was something like out of nowhere, she just picked that up and she felt that she had to mention that, and that's what created the whole avalanche of everything else that happened, where I explained about what happened in the past years and etc., and also with my dad. And then she explained that I didn't have to feel guilty about the fact that my relationship with my mom was closer than with my dad. And after thinking about it and in conversation, I understand what that means, because I was in also having to deal with the loss of my father this year. There has been times in where I was not really sure on how to feel about like the fact that I might have been having stronger feelings about my mom passing than my dad passing, which is like quite hard to say, of course. Like, it's quite difficult to bring this up and to be dishonest about something like that to yourself. So I also feel, I think I kind of like hid that somewhere. I pushed it a little bit away to really like consider that, but she dug it up. She understood that that was an emotional part that I pushed inside of my shadow, which was going to else never gotten to light. I never would really have thought about coming to terms with that feeling and reclaiming that part of myself in my identity in this whole process of working through loss. And the fact that that she brought it up and that she allowed me to understand that there was actually nothing wrong, that there is nothing actually wrong with the fact that with some people you have a closer relationship than with others. That's just perfectly normal, because there is like a reason for why certain people are in your life and what kind of effect they can have on you and your life and the decisions and choices that you make. And that's nothing to feel guilty about. Like you can have something more with some people than with others. So exactly the same goes for your parents. You don't have to treat them equally. They're also just both different people. And that's not to say that my dad was not important to me at all. Like, of course, that you cannot say that that's not, but it's just relative to each other, right? My dad played an insanely important role in just keeping the whole thing together and making everything work and holding the space with his masculine energy and just creating a very healthy environment together, which my mom on her own would not have been able to. That's just how that whole equilibrium, which we covered, also what Fanny talked about with the masculine and the feminine equilibrium, polarity, equilibrium of the polarity. So now, after this conversation, I understand how big of a part that role, that whole release of the guilt thing played into the closure process, the emotional closure of this thing. That's what actually closes what the last bit of the puzzle that I needed to close off this whole ordeal properly, and that I can really fully, with my entire whole dedication, commit myself to this new road that I'm heading into, this new chapter that I'm starting with the book and with my plans for contributing to evolutionary, like the conscious evolution of consciousness of humanity, stuff that I have been talking about before. So that one was like that, just like there's probably a few more things that are gonna come to light and like become more clear to me the longer I process this kind of stuff, and maybe even in a few years that will not be finished. But this was probably the key, like the most important aspect in the whole thing, to really understand why this closure and how this closure happened and how that's opening up energetic memory space or energetic working memory to fully focus on new stuff. I wanted to take a moment here to reflect and bring everything full circle. After spending more time reviewing this season and completing the editing process, I've noticed some beautiful patterns emerge. Recall in the second episode, where I spoke mostly from the car, I discussed the taboo triangle of power, money and relationships. Each point of this triangle has led me through a transformative healing journey on this trip. The closure theme, first introduced with the case study of Emerson College, was particularly significant. It represented the emotional process of closing a chapter in my life, deeply influenced by my parents' approach to life, allowing me to embrace my own path and commitments. I also explored the tantric polarities crucial for a balanced family dynamic, symbolized beautifully by the sun and moon at Stonehenge. However, I realized I omitted an important aspect related to money. Over the weekend, I participated in a money game that unexpectedly directed a substantial amount to me, which in turn I gave to Maria, the healer. This transaction, which my upbringing would have never condoned, symbolized my break from the financial constraints and expectations of my parents. Although I had addressed these issues previously, this was a vivid pattern that resurfaced throughout the week. This realization underscores the holographic pattern observed. Themes that appeared subtly over a 2-day weekend expanded dramatically into personal revelations over the following week. It's a gorgeous reflection of growth and understanding. And then the other thing that I said, the second thing that I remembered that was also important of this, something that Maria gave me as advice to really work on this process of opening my, living more and through my heart. Right now a lot of my thinking, experiencing and decision making is all happening in my mind. And relative to my peers, it's probably that I am already living and making choices much more based on my emotions and feelings and living through my heart, just not try to think about everything but just feel and base your decisions or the way you live, base it on that, on what you feel, instead of trying to understand everything and rationally, but just feel it emotionally and base your action taking on that mechanism. But in order for that to do that, you also need to open your heart chakra more. You need to develop that as a skill. That is a process that you need to embark on. And she promised that, or what Maria said is that I should really seriously commit myself to this process after we have gone through this session together, because else her work is not gonna be as effective. It's exactly the same thing I've been writing about earlier this morning for the post that I did for Ship 30. Is about that it's after a psychedelic experience or a mystic experience, it's important that you integrate whatever you learned throughout life after you had that experience, the insight that it gave you and the feelings that you experienced, and all of that needs to become, you need to make that become part of you. And of course exactly the same holds or stands for such a healing experience. Also in that moment it might have a certain effect and it can be beneficial, but that's only temporary if you don't proactively work on taking the steps and improving your feeling-based action taking. And that's something that is I already noticed that my brain in that way is immediately starting to think about how should I do that then? How does that work then? Trying to rationalize and think, and I know and I believe that that's already immediately where it goes wrong. That's not at all the way that you should approach it. You just need to make things much more easy, much more simple, and just feel and experience. And based on that, just decide where you go and what you do and who you engage with. Let's take one more moment here to clarify the core idea. Our brains rely on stories and visualization techniques to grasp complex concepts and manage internal processes. Everyone responds to a different kind of narrative. Some resonate with stories of archangels, others might connect through extraterrestrials, and yet others through tales of Norse or Celtic mythology, or or any mythology pertinent to their culture or era. The specific narrative doesn't matter, as long as it helps the brain to understand and facilitate the emotional and healing experiences necessary for addressing deep-seated wounds. It's not about getting bogged down by doubts such as questioning the possibility of channeling a loved one through someone like Maria. If you can suspend disbelief and accept these moments as truth, your brain will communicate to your body what's needed for healing. Essentially, this allows you to live from your heart rather than from your intellect. I hope this explanation resonates, especially with those who are scientifically inclined and skeptical, as I once was. So that's still something that, of course, is a bit it's like, because it's also hard to explain, because it's not about rational explanation. It's something that you really need to commit yourself to in order to develop that as a skill. And that she really emphasized that's something that I need to become really serious about if I want this effect to be lasting and want to reap the full benefits, all the fruits of the session or the work that she has done on me during that session. So I think those were two more super important parts that I probably forgot to mention before. We are 20 minutes away from the rentals place and a bit late, running a bit late, but we should be fine. Okay, check in with you later. Ciao. Oh, the car got a nice little new color. Well, wasn't a problem, he said. Fully insured, he said. So that's all good. Baby got back. Now we're waiting for the shuttle to get to the airport. One last coffee, exactly the amount of cash that I still have left in my pocket. So, little doggy and the little Indian. Is that on the siren? The siren, the siren, ciao, ciao, ciao. I'll be back. No, that's a nice welcome home. Join the Yours to Source email course today, subscribe to my mailing list, and ensure you never miss a step on this journey of spiritual growth. Your path to aligning with Source and discovering how it wants to express itself through you begins here.